Hello? Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. In the back, everyone? Okay, good. This is the deep dive into the TFS Agile planning tools. I think I need to start by saying thank you to everyone who shows up at 8:30 for a session like this. I hope to make your time well worthwhile. So let's just get started. First of all, I like to do an introduction of myself, who I am. First, I want to ask, how many of you were at the talk that Martin and I did yesterday? Okay, everyone. So you all know who I am, but I'm going to flip through this pretty quickly. I was born in the United States in Iowa, a little town, and I was born in the northwest corner of Iowa. More specifically, I was born on a farm. So this is a mile. I had about a mile square to run around with as a kid. It was quite a fun experience. I learned how to drive this when I was 5. I drove my first car when I was 6. I'm not kidding. I drove it home from the field. I got in my first car accident when I was 9 when I ran it into the barn. So that's kind of the life I grew up with. I ended up going to Seattle. I started my family. I have 3 boys. And then recently our oldest son got married. So now we have a girl in the family. This is kind of new for me to have a girl around. Other than my wife, of course. She's been around the whole time. Okay. I've been in Visual Studio. I've been at Microsoft for 8 years. I've been through all 3 of the 2008, 12, and 10 and 12 releases. I actually joined at the very end of the 2005 release, just in time to be able to attend the ship party. But I've been completely involved in all 3 of these releases. The agenda that we're going to be talking about today is I'm going to go through 3 things. One is I'm going to talk about a new set of functionality we are adding in the 2013 release called Agile Portfolio Management. So I'm going to talk about the problem set, what the problem we're trying to solve, and how we're going about solving it. Then I'm going to give you a demo. And then after that, I'm going to talk about how we actually use these tools internally at Microsoft. If you were at the session yesterday where Martin and I talked about like how we learned to go from a company that shipped every 2 years to every 3 weeks, this process part is a level below what we talked about yesterday. Yesterday was more of an overview. This is much more detailed, okay? Let's go ahead and get started. So let's look at the problem space. So before I did the demo, I wanted to set up the problem space because I think it will make the demo more understandable. So in 2012, we added a set of Agile tools that allowed a team to manage a backlog. So here we have Team A, and they have a backlog of items, and the items are of different sizes, right? We also allowed you, in addition to managing your backlog, doing sprint planning and so forth, you could create several teams. Within the same team project, you could create these teams. Each team had their own backlog. They could plan their own sprints, have their own task board kind of thing. The problem is what if you have several of these teams, right? Many of these teams all working on the same product, which we do. We have that problem. And then you have a set of stakeholders at the top, and they're wondering what's going on. In our org, we have about 22 teams all going on their own individual backlogs, but they're working on the same set of goals for the product. And so you have this problem where these stakeholders at the top really don't have a good visibility into what's going on or a way to manage what's going on. That's the problem we're trying to solve. Okay, does everyone understand? So I have a question. Would you raise your hand if you think that you also have this kind of problem? You have multiple teams on their own backlog? Okay, good. That's probably why you're here. So let's talk about that. So we introduced this concept called portfolio backlogs. So you have today a stories backlog, which a team can use to manage their work. And we added this concept of a portfolio backlog, which sits above stories. So your portfolio backlog is a backlog in and of itself. You can create items on it, size them, reorder them, and it's at a level of granularity that's interesting to the stakeholders. So you think of larger grained kinds of things. And then what we do is we use linking, the linking that's already in work item tracking in TFS. And what we do is we can link up and we can say the top item on the backlog is actually fulfilled by stories that are on 3 different teams' backlogs. And that's about what we find is 2 or 3 teams, not much more than that often, but 2 or 3 teams are basically working together to fulfill a larger level initiative, if you will. And then the second one is fulfilled by another set of teams, and the third one is fulfilled by another set of teams. So we provide this traceability from all the work going on and all of these teams to a set of backlog items that are interesting to the stakeholders. The other thing we really looked hard at is we know that a very important concept of Agile is autonomy. Basically, give the team the autonomy to work the way that they want to work, because then you will get better results. Let them have the autonomy. But that's interesting because what happens is if you have all of these teams working in their own way, it's at odds a little bit with, hey, we want to trace things up to a common set of goals. And so we worked really hard when implementing these features is we wanted to still allow teams to have their own autonomy, to work the way they wanted to work, without sacrificing the ability for stakeholders to do roll-up. And I'll show you how we do that in a bit. This is just a little side note here. This is one of my favorite books, Drive. How many have read this book? Okay, a few. One? All right. So, hey, awesome. This is a great book. This is like, there's, the subtitle, which you may not be able to read, is The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. I'm going to summarize what the book talks about, and what they say is, for repetitive, non-creative tasks, rewards and incentives increase productivity. So if you have these non-creative tasks, like 100 years ago when a lot of the work was factory working or this kind of labor type of working, rewards actually increase productivity. But they have plenty of studies in the book that show for creative work, which we all know software engineering is a creative problem-solving kind of job, rewards actually reduce the productivity of it. And it's quite fascinating. And they say what for the creative type of job, if you really want great results, you need to provide them with 3 things. You need to give them autonomy, which is the ability to control their own destiny. They want to run their own lives. And Agile is based off this. Like Agile has this as a major principle. Give them mastery, give them the ability to become very good at what they do. And then purpose. Let them know that what they're doing is actually serving a bigger purpose. These 3 things and great things will happen. The example that's given is the comparing Encarta, which was a well-funded encyclopedia program by Microsoft, right? You had people who were paid to do this, and it was killed by Wikipedia. And these are people that they just wanted to go and do this. They wanted to be part of something bigger. They weren't being paid. And 10 years ago, if you had asked which one was going to be successful, the ones where you're incenting people to do good work or people are just doing it on their own time, you probably would have picked this. So this really drives a lot. What we do is that we really want to try to provide the ability to grant autonomy to the teams. Okay, so let's talk about some of the features. One of the features we implemented recently as an update to the 2012 release is Kanban columns. So what we provide is the ability, and how many of you work with Kanban boards? Okay, quite a few number of you. Kanban, in a nutshell, is essentially they say, visualize your work, visualize the flow of the work, watch it, and you can start to establish where bottlenecks are. And so, and most people who are working as helping people start with Kanban, they say, visualize your current process. Whatever you're doing today, just visualize it, and then you can start to see where you can improve. And so the problem, of course, is that if you have all of these teams wanting to work in their own way, how do you provide a way where each one can have their own individual Kanban board? And that's the functionality we wanted to provide. So every team can define their own set of columns that their backlog items go through. And even the stakeholders can define a Kanban board at the upper level as well, so they can visualize the flow of the work on the top. So that's one thing we did. The next thing we added were tags. Tags is the ability, a lightweight ability of marking up a work item, like marking it as critical or marking it as customer sourced or something. Again, it's very lightweight. Teams can add these tags as they want, and tags are available at all the backlog levels as well. I often joke, our bug form within the organization at Microsoft that I work in is this horrendous bug form with about 100 fields on it. And it got that way because everybody was asking for a field and people weren't saying no, and so we just kept adding fields to the bug form and everyone had to then fill them out. And we're working now to remove the fields and start pulling things out and say, look, you know, this field only had one value in it across the million bugs. No one's using it. We're going to get rid of it. So we're doing that. But there are two fields that we could never get rid of because everyone would scream. And they are two string fields, and they're called custom01 and custom02. They're these generic string fields that people can just enter in anything they want to help manage their own work. And what we're looking for is tags is really a way of solving that, the need that's being fulfilled by these custom string fields. The last feature is you can have multiple levels of portfolio backlogs. When we talked with our customers, we found that most customers, they have a backlog at the stories level, and they would have between 2 and 3 levels of hierarchy of backlog above it. So, for example, a common one might be you might have goals at the top, and goals might span releases. And then goals are fulfilled by initiatives. And initiatives are typically fulfilled within a release. So this is a goal for this is an initiative for this release that meets this goal. And then initiatives are then implemented by features or epics, or we call them experiences internally. But they're a larger granularity of item that it's really a chunk of value meaningful to the customer. And then epics are completed by stories. And stories are essentially chunks of value worked on by the team. And the team can break that down to any granularity that's interesting to them, while the level just above stories is the chunk of value meaningful to the customer. So that might be a common thing. And so we provided the ability to have up to 5 levels above your stories. So if you're an organization with lots of hierarchy, you can go up to 5. If you want to go higher than that, you can't. Not with our product, right? So we're just saying that we went up to 5, and we felt that met most of the needs of customers. Okay, so that's all by way of setup for the demo that I'm going to show you now. And I get to practice my screen switching skills here. All right. All right, I have some notes here. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is I got a couple of different projects to show a couple of different scenarios. I'm showing you now a project called Fabricam Fiber, and it's just based on the out-of-the-box Scrum template. So it's a pretty simple example just to kind of start on some things. So what you see here is that we have this backlog right here. We added this in 2012. You can drag drop items on the backlog to reorder them if you want. We can go ahead and add a new item to the backlog. Just as simple as that. You can grab that item and you can drag it up or down if you want. That's basically our backlog management experience that we provided in 2012. One of the things I'm showing you here is you see this tags field right here. So you can see these are the tags that have been added. So I take this new item, let's do that, and let's add a few tags to it. So we can add customer, and we can add TechEd, and then you can even add a new tag. We can call this, TechEd Madrid. So I just created a new tag. That's as simple as what it took to do that. We wanted it to be very lightweight for the team. Now I can go ahead and save this. And so now I'm on my backlog, and I can have tag filtering. So say I go over here, and now I have the ability to filter on the tags on my backlog. So let's say I want to look at all the ones that were marked customer. So now I've just filtered my backlog to just those marked as customer. And then you see the remaining tags. These are the remaining kinds of filters I can do. So I can go ahead and click on this one, and I see just the ones that are marked with both customer and TechEd Madrid. These are my selected ones right here. And then I can go ahead and say all, undo the filter, and I can go and filter by another tag if I want. So this is a quick way of doing, I'll get to you in just a second, a quick way of doing filtering and adding, decorating your work items with different kinds of tags. So let me turn off that. There was a question here, yes? Okay, is it possible to search or query for tags? Were you at my session yesterday? Okay. So at my session yesterday, I said, no, it's not possible to search for tags. I appreciate the question because I can let everyone else know. What we want to provide is the ability that I can create a query that says, give me all the work items where tags contains TechEd Madrid, right? It's on our backlog. It's quite high on our backlog, and we want to do it soon because we know that people want to do that. So thanks for the question. But now what we can do is let me go over here and let me bring up this all work items query. So on any query, you are able to then filter on tags. So while you can't just create a query that returns it, you can run a query and then filter that query down to what you want. So that is possible today. So just to let you know that. Another thing that you might notice is there's this little bit of color here. This is something we added a couple of sprints ago, and we essentially allowed you to associate a color with a work item type. So here, this is all the work items. You'll see that we have purple associated with feature, yellow is associated with task, blue here. If I went back to my backlog, you'd see that this is a bug right here. So with Scrum, you can have both backlog items and bugs on your backlog, and we give you that little bit of color to just visually distinguish them. Before, you could add a column called work item type, but the human brain is so much quicker at decoding colors like this that we find this a lot better. And this is consistent throughout. You'll see that as I show you some other items as well. And here's our Kanban board. So you'll see how the bug tile also adopts the same coloring scheme as well, right? So here's our Kanban board. And this is a Kanban of your user stories on your backlog as they're flowing through a state model that you can define. So let's look at this. I can define these columns however I want. So I'm my own team. I can to define these columns before you had to go change the state model of your work item type, right, to do this. And anyone who's done that, who's actually opened up the XML and added a new state, understands that that's not a simple task to go do. And we wanted to make it drop dead simple for these people because with folks who are modifying their Kanban board, they're modifying it all the time as they learn more about their process or they decide to consolidate columns or add columns. So let me walk you through that functionality. So here we are. Here's our customized columns dialog for this board. And you'll see here's all the columns that are available. And then what you'll see here, I can define the WIP limit, which I'll talk about in a second. And I map this column to a state for all the work items that are available for that backlog. So if I wanted to do something here, like I wanted to do, let's do this, groomed. So, and I want to map this to the approved state, like that, and hit OK. I've immediately added a new column. So now that mapping to the approved state, let me show you how that works. So if I look at this work item right here, and I see it's in the new state right there. Everyone see that? It's in the new state. I come over here, and I drag it over to the groomed state. What we have is we have appended some rules to that work item that automatically switch the state based on the column. So if I go here you'll see that it's been set to the approved state. Now, where this is very interesting is that it solves a problem where teams can have autonomy to set up the columns however they want, but you still have a consistent state model that you can roll up against across all the teams. So it's sort of like the common language that all teams speak. It's the state, and then there's this translation between what the team wants and what the organization wants to do. So, for example, if I come over here, and I see I have this column here called complete. If I look at my column mapping, I'll see that that's mapped to the done state. Well, I, as a stakeholder, can write a query that says, give me all of the stories that were marked as done in sprint 42 across all teams. And no matter what they decide to name their done column, I will get a consistent set of results no matter what. And if the team decides to modify things later on, my results stay consistent. So teams get autonomy, but you still get a nice roll-up at the top. Okay? Are there any questions about that feature that I just talked about? Okay, good. That's good. I'll show you a little more about that in a second. Okay. So we have this board here at the stories level. And we also have, this was before, but we have a board that's at the task level as well. So a task board is really a simplified Kanban board in a way, but it's visualizing the work, not the value. It's visualizing the work, so you're seeing tasks flow across the columns there. What you see here, these are all the user stories that are pulled into the sprint, and these are all the tasks right here. And, at stand-ups, and we do this, we actually have a projector that's on a little cart in our hallway that's just shining on the wall, and teams come through, and we have our stand-ups right in the middle of the hallway. So we don't have a big fancy 50-inch touch screen. We just have this simple we bought a $70 cart with an old laptop. But what will happen is that people come around, and like Brian Keller might say, okay, well, I've completed this task, and he'll just drag it over. And Annie might come along and say, well, I've maybe gotten only 4 hours left of this task. And you know what? Actually, we need to hand this off to Cameron, so we just do that. And in our stand-ups, we're actually updating the data that drives the visibility. So it really helps to solve the problem. Like, would you just please update your hours? Like, how many times I've asked developers, please just do this one thing, just this one thing, please. Will you just please tell me how many hours are left? So it just sort of happens now, naturally, as part of the stand-up. And we really worked hard to try to make it lightweight to update these things. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. So now what you might be noticing is there's this backlog above here. So that's the features backlog. This is an example of a portfolio backlog as we've talked about it. So out of the box, we're going to provide the features backlog, which is a level 1 above stories. You'll see here as well, we have a Kanban board. The Kanban board can be customized to whatever that team wants to visualize the flow of features as they move across. If they wanted to have 7 steps of approving a feature to even being started to work on, you can put those columns in there and you can see them as they flow across. You will also notice that the coloring scheme takes into effect here as well. And every backlog, every level of backlog has its own cumulative flow diagram. So you can watch the cumulative flow, the CFD chart, for every level. So we provide this sort of consistent thing. The one thing I really want to point out is that this is a backlog like any other backlog. So you can add new items. So I can say, hey, a new item. I can drag drop. I can use tags. I can set the column options to add new items. I can do a query. I can even filter by tags if I want to do that. All those things that I could do on the main backlog, I can do here. And it's all shared code, so we're going to be adding more functionality, and as we add it, it's going to be available across all the levels. So one bit of functionality that's not there yet, that I'm just going to be honest that it's not there, it's going to be expected, is that I don't have the ability to add a tile directly from the board. So I want to just create a new item right from the board, and right now we make you have to go back to here and add a new item, and then it shows up on the board here. I'll get you in just a sec. Another one is that, hey, I want to drag, drop, reorder here. So I want to drag, drop, reorder right from in here. And again, that's another thing that you can't do yet. You can reorder from the backlog, and it will show that way on the board. But again, that's another feature we want to add. And when we add it, it will be available on all backlog levels, stories, and all the levels above it. So, okay, there was a question over here. Yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, are there different permissions for backlog? Is that the question? Okay, so the questions are, can you have different permissions for different backlogs? The answer is the permission model is unchanged from before. So the permission model is based on area path. So you could use area paths to lock down certain levels of your backlog by putting features at a certain area path and saying only those people can edit those things. But we did not add any new permission models when we added this. So that's the answer there. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. All right. So now what I have is these features. Now where it gets really interesting is I say I have these features, and I want to drill down to my backlog items. So what are we seeing here? What we're seeing is all of the features and then every one of the backlog items from any team, doesn't matter what team it is, any backlog item that's contributing to that feature. And you can see now where like the state becomes important, because if those backlog items were on 5 different teams, I still have this common language of state that I can understand at this upper level. And then you will also see that some of the features at the bottom, they don't have any backlog items fulfilling them yet. So that's something you could go do. Now let's flip to this other way. We have your backlog items, and you can drill up, if that's even a word, but you can drill up. And what that shows you is it shows you all of your backlog items and then any features that they contribute to. So you'll notice you're not seeing all the features. You're seeing only the 2 features that these backlog items are contributing to, and you're seeing a bunch of backlog items that aren't contributing to any features. Okay, so what this allows you to do is that if you're a team at the bottom, you can always drill up and see, what is my work contributing to? You know, what is my purpose, if you will? What is the bigger picture to what I'm doing? And I'll tell you, if something up here is important to my manager's manager, it's important to me, and I want to know what I'm doing to contribute. And then if you're at the top, you can always look down and see how many of the stories are done for this particular item as well. Okay? Another feature that's coming but is not there, but I just want to let you know, is like, hey, I have this nice tree view here. What I would love to be able to do is flip to the board and see a hierarchical board, if you will. Much kind of like you see with this, how this is a hierarchical board with the stories down the left and the tasks like this. What I would like to be able to do is come to here, and I would drill down to backlog items, and then if I flip to the board, what I would like to see would be my features down the left and my stories like this. It's not there yet, but again, it's a feature that we want to add. And again, when we add it, it's going to be available on all the levels. So it'll be that kind of viewing will be available everywhere. Okay, so what is allowing me to create this view right here? So I have this view. It's a nice hierarchical view. Let's look at this a little bit. All it is just parent-child links. So, oh yeah, here's all my children. So you see I have all these children here. They're just my children links that I'm seeing. So it's a familiar construct that we all have, is that these links. We just provided you a fit-for-purpose view on managing and viewing those links. So you can use any tool to create these links. If you wanted to use Excel or whatever, you can do that. But it's just a link right here. So now I'm going to walk through the process of, I want to create a new relationship. So let's say I wanted to take this one and make it, let's go to here and drill up. Let's say I want to take this new item and make it contribute to this right here. Right now, what I'm not able to show you is what I'd love to do is just drag this thing here and drop it, and it would become apparent. It's not available in these bits, but it's something we're adding soon. By the way, what I'm showing you is what's available on the preview. So what's downloadable now, this is what's available now, okay? But if I want to create this relationship, I go here, and I say, okay, that's feature 83, and then I'm going to go here like this and create a new link, and it's of type parent 83, and save, and then I'm going to refresh my view, and you'll see that it's now under there. Wasn't that easy? So no. What we're going to do is provide a nice experience for managing that. So but I just wanted to point out that underneath the scenes, it's just links like it always is, okay? All right. So that's that. Now let me take you to another project. I'm going to take you to one that we call Tailspin Toys. Now, the scenario I'm setting up here is one that we hear a lot about from our customers. And what they have is they have a master backlog. So they have a backlog of items, and this single backlog feeds several teams, right? So each team doesn't have their own autonomous backlog. You have one master backlog, one product owner that owns it, and then that feeds the teams. So how many of you have a situation that's like this? Could you raise your hand? Okay. All right, so what I've shown is I'm showing how this might work in Team Foundation Server. So what you see here is I'm on the root team for this Tailspin Toys team project. And I have a backlog here. This would be like my master backlog. And you will also see that I have a few items on my backlog, and I also have features right here as well. So I have some features, and then I can see how the features are drilling down into stories like that, okay? So now let's go look at some other teams on this team project. So I have 3 other teams. These are the 3 teams that are actually doing the work. I have the propellers, the wheels, and the wings team. So let's go to the propellers team right here. And you'll see here I have a backlog, but I only have a few items on my backlog because I'm only going to ever have the items that I'm going to be working on in the very next sprint. So, and really the goal is I put them on this backlog so I can reorder them, get them in a sprint, and start executing on them. So you'll see here that I just have these 2 items. So let me go back to the master backlog. And let me point out a couple things out here. You'll see there's no sprints here. So for this master team, I haven't checked that I participate in any sprints because I don't. This team is not a working team. It's a managing team. It's leading. It's at the leadership level. It's not actually doing the work. So there's no sprint. There's no need for sprints there, so they don't show up. So we have a customer who's by us, and they have this example. And what they do before every sprint is that all the leadership from all the teams come together, and it's about 20 people in the room, and they're looking through the master backlog, and they discuss which team makes sense to pull that one onto their backlog. So they have this discussion, and they sort of have this sort of scrum of scrum sprint planning meeting, if you will, where they decide together who's going to do the work. So let's say in this example, they decided that the propeller team should do this work, okay? And what I've done here is I've added a little tag here so that we can recognize it when it moves. So we could open this thing up, and right now it's in the Tailspin Toys area path. And we can set that to be propeller. And I hit save. And what I will get is I'll get a little notification there that said it has been removed from your backlog because you modified the area path. It's no longer on your master backlog, if you will. It's fallen off. And if I go over to the Tailspin Toys propeller team, you'll see that that new item that I added is now there on the backlog. And so what this organization does is they just do this for all the teams. All the teams get enough work where they think they can do in a sprint. They plan the sprint. If there's any items that didn't get planned into the sprint, like they couldn't commit to them, then they get pulled back onto the backlog again and then are re-triaged the next time. So here you see, okay, so this team can go ahead and do this. They can pull it into sprints. They can plan it. Now let's go look at another team. Let's look at the Wings team. Now here's the Wings team, and they have a few items on their backlog. But you'll notice again, the Wings team doesn't have any sprints. But they are a team that does execution. They execute on work. And the reason is this team doesn't use Scrum. They don't use sprints. They do a continuous delivery model. So the way they work is that all of their stuff is just on their Kanban board. So they just watch the flow of work. This is the level of granularity that they work with. They pull it into a ready for test. They pull it into staging deployment. That's how they manage their work. And they can manage these columns to be whatever they want, whatever suits their needs in order to do it. And the reason they can do that is why? Because they're always mapping to a state. And the state rolls up. And so this master team at the top is always seeing a consistent set of states that work. So we're not forcing people to work in any particular way. So to further make this point, let me flip from here to the propellers team. And you'll see the propellers team Kanban board is quite simple. Either they're not working on it, or it's in progress, which means it's in the sprint, or it's done. That's all they really care about. Most of the work that they're tracking, they're spending most of the time on this board right here. That's where they spend a lot of their time. So let's consider this. Let's say I look here, and you see I have this in progress is mapped to resolved right here, okay? And I go over to the Wings team, and I look at their columns, and I'll see that resolved is way over here in deployment. Now, these are kind of poor examples, so bear with me that the states actually don't make a lot of sense, but I'm still going to make my point here. So if I go over to here, to the propellers team, and I take this item that's in progress, and I open it up, and I drag it over, and I say, you know what, this is really the Wings team. I'm going to save it. Okay, it falls off the board. Now the question is, which column is it going to appear on the other team's board? Well, as you might have already guessed, it's going to appear on the first column mapped to the state. So it appeared over here in the deployments, this one right here. So it's a way of mapping between teams as well. It's that, like I said, it's that common language that the work items all speak. Okay? All right. Let me see. I'm going to look at my notes here. All right. So now I'm going to go to the another project. All of these have been showing you just examples of the out-of-box template, which is just features and then whatever what we call the requirements backlog. So the requirements backlog in the Agile template is stories. The requirements backlog in the Scrum template is backlog items and bugs. And in the CMMI template, it's requirements. But we just call it the requirements backlog, which is where the work is being done. So here I'm going to show you an example of where you can customize it. So what you'll see here is you'll see that we have 3 levels above our requirements backlog. Our requirements backlog can contain stories, but then above stories we have features. Features contribute to experiences, and experiences contribute to scenarios. So this is customizable, and we made it customizable in the following ways. First, you can decide how many levels you want. Again, up to 5. Okay? The second thing is you can define what the names of those levels are. So you can pick terms that are familiar to your organization. So when I go here, I'll see a term that makes sense to me. Third, you can also define what work item types are available at each level. So if you had a level at the top called goals, and you had 2 different types of goals that were managed by 2 different types of work items, you could have both of those appear at the top. So, and then you can also do things like, you see here, I have an add panel that's specific to that particular backlog. And if I go down here, the add panel is specific to that backlog. So you can customize things like that as well. Okay, so what we wanted to be is that when you configure it, people using the product will see terms that are familiar to what they're used to in your organization. So just to show you really quick, we're just gonna do a quick peek at this. This is just the XML, and I'm only doing this to quickly show you what it might look like. So here's the portfolio backlog section. You can define the category, which lists the work item types available to that backlog. You can define the plural name and the singular name for that backlog. And we use those words in the UI in different places. Excuse me. You can define the add panel, what fields appear on the add panel. So you just add those. The default columns that show up on the backlog. Again, the user gets to customize the columns to whatever they want, but this will be the default experience for them. And then you also define the state model as well. Then you'll see here's another portfolio backlog. So that was the top one. The next one is experiences. So you see here's the experiences. And then this is how you define the hierarchy of your backlogs, is you make one backlog a parent of another backlog. That's how you do that. And then again, you can just go down. And you can do this up to 5 times, and you get those 5 different levels. All right, let me get rid of that. Come back to here. Okay. Are there any questions about what I've shown you? Yes? Okay, so the question is, the question is that you have like a separate field that distinguishes between types. Okay, so I think your question is can I have we'll call that work item type backlog item, and then there is a type field within it which talks about the type of backlog item. If you want to say the backlog item of this type is on this level, and the backlog item of this type is on the other level, you can't do that. Right? So it's based on work item type. Now, again, on our backlog, I want to tell you this, we want to make changing the work item type as easy as changing a field. So we would believe that the right answer to that is, let me take this item from one backlog, drag it to another backlog, and we'll just change the type for you, just like that. Today, it's not possible, which is why people are doing things like what you described. They're creating these subtype fields, which I understand. But we're building it based on how we're going to make it. So, okay? All right. All right. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, that's number 3. All right. Okay. Now, what I have been showing you is the bits that are available in preview. What I'm going to show you is what's coming up. Okay? Now, what I'm doing is I'm VPNing into my desktop machine back in the United States. Okay? So I'm going to do this demo only if you promise me one thing. If it crashes, don't tell me in the evals that the demo didn't work, right? Because this is extra bonus stuff. It may not work. But I really wanted to show you some of this stuff, okay? I want to show you what's happening. So let me show you a few things here. So, all right, so what you see here is we have the ability to go ahead and drill down. We've made this a little bit prettier here, where I can drill down to stories like this. Come on, wake up, machine. I should have been warming it up. Come on. There it is. Okay, so here you can see how we drill down. What we've added is this shortcut way of drilling up and down your backlogs. So you'll see here what I can do is I can go to the scenarios backlog and I can just click here and I've drilled down to this experiences backlog, and I can click here and I can drill down to the stories. And if I want to toggle that off, I can go ahead and toggle that off, or I can drill all the way down to tasks. So it's doing the same thing as what over here is. In fact, if I change it here, it actually modifies it over here. But we just added this as a way of like a shortcut way of visualizing and clicking, filtering up and down on your backlog. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. The second thing I wanted to show you, like if I'm on experiences and I've drilled up to scenarios like this. Let's say I want to add a new experience here, but I want to add it in the context of a scenario. I can go ahead and do that here. I can hit the plus sign. I can say, hey, a new item, hit save, and what it will do is it will save it and automatically create the parent-child relationship for you to this item. So you get this, a nice decomposing experience where you want to break things down. So again, this is one of the features that's going to make it so you don't have to go to the links control and copy a work item ID and all this stuff right here. So this is another thing I wanted to show you. And then the third thing, let me go to another team here. This is like a team, and I'm going to go ahead and drill up to experiences here. So you can see here I have these stories are mapped to these experiences, but I want to map these stories to experiences. So what I can go ahead and do is I can turn this mapping panel on, and what I do is I see the experiences showing up. So I see items of the level above me. Since you've told us the hierarchy, we can just do this for you. And now I can go ahead and I can drag this, say I can drag this over here, and then you'll see it automatically updates my tree, and go ahead and drag this right here, and I'll drag this right here, kind of thing. So this is a way of providing a nice mapping experience for you can just create these relationships, because we understand if it's going to be hard to create the relationships, then people won't create them. One more thing, just pointing out, is that you'll see that I'm on the WIT Experience team. The WIT Experience team is one of those teams at the bottom doing the work, okay? I have another team in this team project called the VSCS team. That's a management team managing things at the top, right? Okay, so if you see, I go to the WIT Experience team and I click on their experiences backlog. I don't have any. The reason I don't have any is because I don't have any experiences of my own. All of my work contributes to higher level experiences that are owned by some management team. Okay? If I go to this management team and I click on experiences, you'll see that I have all the experiences there. This is the VSCS team. So let's go back down to here. Now when I'm mapping here, the default is it's going to show me all the experiences on my own team right here. I don't have any. But I know that I map to experiences on this team. So it's just as simple as selecting the other team, and now I see their experiences. So it gives you the ability to do this. You can create these upper level backlogs. You can create a team that manages these upper level backlogs, and then all the lower level teams can then map to those things. So it gives you this visibility across multiple teams if you want. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. That's it for that sneak preview. Let's go back to this. Let me look at the time here. Okay, so before I move on to the next part of the thing, are there any questions about the features that I showed you? Yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear you, man. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good question. So the question was, is the Kanban board experience, all this management experience, available only on the web, or is it also in Visual Studio? And the answer, it is only on the web. We're absolutely targeting an audience that would probably not have Visual Studio even installed on their machine. So it's going to be available on the web only. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, great. Okay, let's go on to the next part of it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about how things work internally. And you will see a lot of what I'm going to show you maps to how these portfolio backlogs work. In fact, we're very eager to be using our tools. In the very first release of our tools, we started using them for ourselves and getting value out of them. So we're excited to use this kind of stuff. And let me show you how that goes about. Yesterday, I talked about this concept of alignment versus autonomy. So yes, we need to give teams autonomy to work how they want to work, but there is a certain set of game rules, a way that things are done in your organization that everyone should align on. And where that line is drawn for us is the top 4 things are essentially decided for the teams. It's basically how everyone works together, and the bottom 2 things are how teams can do what they want. Okay? So let me go through these things. The roles. If you're not familiar with this, in Microsoft we have 3 roles. The program manager is essentially the product owner. So they don't have people reporting to them. They own the backlog. Their job is to create the best experience for the customer. Development, obviously they're doing the coding, and QA, they're making sure it's high quality. So pretty standard thing. These 3 roles are basically pervasive throughout all of Microsoft, and they're at equal footing. So there is not one that's over the other. Even at the upper management levels, there's always, if you go up to the director levels or VP levels, there's a VP of QA, Dev, and PM that are at equal footing all the time. Now, so this is what the organizational structure looks like. Our teams, however, are matrix teams that cut across them. So we build these things called feature teams, which are made up of a PM, 1 or 2, some QA, and some dev people on that team. And so what we do is these teams are pulled together, and they're called feature teams. So my feature team is called the WIT Experience Team, the Work Item Tracking Experience Team, and our responsibility is all the Agile tools that you've been seeing. That's what we're doing. So we have some consistency. So here you see some of the teams that are pulled together, and they're pulled together around a feature set. And they're pretty consistent. They stay together for about a year or 2. Okay? Our sprint cadence, like I said yesterday, we were playing with the idea of allowing teams to pick their own sprint cadence, how long, when they start, when they end, and it caused so much chaos and so much confusion. We just said, look, we're all going to work on 3-week sprints, everybody. And everybody's going to start on the same day and end on the same day. And it just solves a lot of problems and really doesn't cause any problems by doing that. So we have 3-week sprints. And then at the end of them, I went through this yesterday. We went from 12 to 6 to 3-week sprints. And so right now we're on this 3-week cadence. Our sprints look like this. The light blue part is the deployment. So we complete something on the end of the sprint, and then the following week we're putting it into pre-production, we're verifying it, and then at the end of that week we push it to production. It gets pushed into the hosted service. So and our numbers, we just started at number 1 like 2 years ago, and we're up to 50. I think we're in sprint 50 now. I'm not sure when it's going to reset, but it doesn't matter. We're just keep rolling the numbers. So at the beginning, there's typically sprint planning. We're done at the end, and then there's this deployment thing that I was telling you about. Now, what's happening, though, is it overlaps with the first week. So the first week of every sprint, the quality assurance people always have a set of tasks to just verify that nothing's broken on the pre-production server. So that's always going on. So there is this overlap always going on to do this. So you could really look at it. Do we have about 2-week sprints maybe plus deployment? There's just overlap. It's just how we work. It's what's working for us. One practice that's being adopted by a lot of teams is they have this backlog grooming kind of meeting. It happens every week for some teams. Some teams do it once a sprint. But the idea is, I personally believe, I'll say this, if you're at your sprint planning meeting and your developers or your team are seeing the stories for the first time, I think something's wrong. Now, in some teams it works. In our organization, I don't think it does. And the thing is I don't know how you can get people excited about doing a feature, getting them revved up to do something when they're seeing it for the first time on the same day that they're being asked to estimate it. So one of the things that we did is a lot of teams are implementing these weekly grooming meetings where it's just an hour, it's on the calendar, everyone comes together, and the product owner says, hey, this is the stuff that's coming up in the next sprint. And they walk them through the stories. There might be storyboards that they're walking through, and that gets people starting to think about it. And then they come up with, testers are actually great. They say, look, what happens with this? What happens with this? And we actually make the spec better and better. And my goal is that they've seen it twice before sprint planning. So it's rolled through 2 grooming meetings before they see it in sprint planning. So a lot of the teams that are really good about that actually I think are more successful. Okay, so let's look at the sprint mechanics. So if you understand about Scrum, Scrum says, hey, you should have like a sprint demo with your stakeholders at the end of every sprint. That's one of the things that they say you should do. However, when you have 22 teams and you have one set of stakeholders with these 22 teams, that gets to be quite a bit. So what we did is we implemented the sprint emails. So at the beginning of every sprint, the Scrum Master will send out an email to the entire organization of 500 people, targeted towards the stakeholders, but copied everybody in the organization. And they say, hey, this is what we're going to do in the sprint. Just wanted to let you know. And they talk about, hey, these are the goals, and these are the user stories that we're going to work on. Gives everyone sort of a heads up of what's going to happen. At the end of the sprint, we send out our sprint results email. And again, sent to the stakeholders, copied to the entire organization. And what we do is we have very transparent status on what things got completed. Like, things happen, we didn't get all the stories done, things are ongoing, there was an issue. Try to be very transparent with that. And then, as far as the demo goes, because one of the things Scrum says is you should demo what you've actually delivered, is we do these sprint videos. So everyone has this recording software. We got recording software for everybody. Camtasia is what we use. And people basically, a lot of people strap on a mic, and they'll just demo it to the recording, package it up, and it gets sent out in the email. Now, the question about this is, does this cause a lot of spam, right? So, and I'll tell you, at the beginning of every sprint, I can expect 22 result emails from the prior sprint and 22 emails for the upcoming sprint. They end up in my inbox. The stakeholders, however, like Brian Harry, who is the top of our food chain, he reads every single one. He replies to every single one with a comment like, great job, I have questions about this. He watches every single sprint video. And he does that because he knows it's his way to keep his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the entire organization. I won't watch all of them, but there'll be certain teams that are like, okay, I want to know what's going on there because it might impact me. So I will read their emails, I will watch their videos, and there have been more than one time that I said, hey guys, we need to talk because I think there might be some coordination that we need to do. But a lot of them, I might just let go. I'm not as interested. So I think that it does work. It works for us and our organization. I think that's something that could work. All right. So now let's, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, so the question is, when do they make the sprint videos? Yeah, so we have a goal that the sprint videos are sent out within 3 days at the end of the sprint. So the sprint ends on a Friday. By Wednesday, everyone should have sent out the results email and done the sprint video. And I'm sorry? Yeah, it's part of the first week of the next sprint. And we also, you get people, autonomy comes with creativity, and some of these videos, they had music, they had special effects, and that's all fun and everything like that, and no one ever said anything about that. But the goal is these things should be easy to do. You should be able to sit down in 10 minutes, record a video, talk to the thing a little bit. They're not meant to be pretty. They're meant to be informative. So you get all over the board kind of thing. So, but the demand is that it's supposed to be low cost to make. Okay? Yes? What's our definition of done?
Yes, what's your definition of done? Because so basically the sprint is ready, the task is ready if it's implemented and tested. The test phase is what's overlapping right now.
Okay, so what's the definition of done? So our definition of done is met at the end of the dark blue part. Okay, so it means it's ready to go to production at the end of the sprint, on the last day of the sprint. And so that includes, like, it's been performance tested, it's been verified for localization, tests are all passing, security, all that kind of stuff. All those done criteria. The light blue item is just meant to be a light verification. You should not find, the expectation is you should not find bugs in that time. If you find bugs in that time, someone checked in bad code, and we need to figure that out. So there's really, it's meant to be maybe like, I would say maybe a day's worth of work across the QA team, several people, to verify that. Yes? What if you do if you find a bug? You have to fix it. If you find a bug in there, you have two choices. You can roll back the changes, which is a big deal once you put it in there, because we have a branch. We have a cloud branch, a cloud release branch, that once it goes in there, it all comes in as one big chunk. And if one team introduced a bug that's going to stop the release, they have to fix it in that branch. And there's a whole change request process that you have to go through. You have to get approval. You have to get multiple levels of code reviews. It's quite heavy maintenance to do that, but it is possible. And I would say every sprint, there's maybe one bug that's being fixed in the branch, by different teams, kind of thing. So, yes. How do we manage testing? You're going to have to holler, man. Yes. Okay, so the question is, how do we handle testing? I'm checking my time here. How do we handle testing? And the answer is, every team has their own test members, and the testing is done within the sprint. So the healthier teams, the testers are actually working with the developers and getting shelf sets quite quickly of pieces to fix, almost like maybe within even 3 days within the sprint, they're getting things. They might get a stubbed out API that they could write their automation test framework against. And they're actually working and testing throughout the whole thing. And then really the last 3 days is kind of like, okay, no more coding, we're just kind of verifying everything. The teams that I would say are a little less healthy, they actually have a little mini waterfall in their sprint where they kind of have, like, all the coding gets done here, there's a little code complete date, then all the testing gets done here. But the goal, regardless of how they do it, the idea is the testing's done within the sprint. It's completed within the sprint. So, okay? All right, so now let's take this thing up one level. And what you have is all these sprints, we have to remember there are 22 teams working at the same time, each with their own backlog. We don't have a master backlog thing in our organization. We have scenarios and experiences, but we have this. So how do people stay on top of that? What we've implemented is these things we call team chats. They happen every 2 sprints, and essentially the teams are coming in and they're ready to answer these questions. What's next? How's the team doing? And are there any issues? It's a bit of like a stand-up, if you will. So I'll tell you how this works. The stakeholders schedule a 4-hour meeting. Typically, it's 2 2-hour meetings. Every team gets 15 minutes. As a team member comes in, the teams come in, they present a slide deck with a very simple slide deck with the answers to these questions. The stakeholders get a chance to hear what's going on. They know what's going to be happening in the next couple of sprints. They get a chance to ask questions, provide feedback, maybe change some direction if they see things might be not aligned, and then they move on to the next team. And it's a pretty lightweight way, so I don't have to spend much time preparing for this thing as a person on the team. And what we have is, we're very careful, it's those leadership on the team. The dev, PM, and QA people on the team are presenting directly to the top. That's what's happening. The other layers of management are in the room, but they're doing the presenting. And what we don't do is this. and what I've seen happen at other companies I've worked at, where it kind of gets repackaged in layers of management as it's going up. We try to make it from the team directly to the stakeholders. Now, to be clear, people who are successful here, they've certainly looped in the leadership before they've gone to the team, right? The worst thing you want to do is surprise your manager with something when their manager's in the room, right? So if you're smart, you have said, hey, ahead of time, I'm letting you know what I'm going to present. But when you're in the meeting, the people in the team are the ones presenting. That's how it works. All right. And then if you step up one more level, what we do every 6 months is we create what we call a half-year plan. So we kind of break our years up into a spring release, which is really January to June, and a fall release, which is July to December. And we have these themes for the spring release. We'll have a goal for the spring release. So for example, one of the goals for the spring release was Git support. Like that was one of the big goals. We were going to support Git. We were going to support Enterprise Agile. We were going to have a showing there. Those were major goals for the spring release that were communicated throughout the teams. And then what we also do is we have this rolling 18-month vision. So again, this is like understanding the idea that your crystal ball gets a little fuzzy the further you look out into the future, but we're still trying to set a direction that, look, over the next 18 months, we want to be here, roughly. And we adjust it every 6 months. So as you go up, this is kind of how the plans are pulled together. With the work items, we have we have 2 levels above our requirements backlog. We have scenarios, which are these large initiatives. They are scoped to a release. So we say we want to implement this scenario in this release. One of the scenarios for the 2013 release is what we call Enterprise Agile, which are features to help scale. It's the features that I showed you today, help scaling Agile up to the enterprise. An experience is an end-to-end set of stories. And then, of course, stories and tasks, you know what they are. I'm going to flip through these. These are the work items that they are. So this is how it works. We have a scenario, and a person gets assigned as a scenario owner. It's typically someone that's a little bit higher up in the management chain, a more senior person. That person coordinates creating a storyboard. We use our own storyboarding tools for PowerPoint, and we create these storyboards that are meant to tell, hey, this is the value provided to the customer visually. We kind of present it visually. And that goes to a scenario review. So the scenario owner and all the people that are on his team or her team go to the stakeholders, and they go through the storyboard saying, if we implement this, this is what the value to the customer will look like. And then and you can have one or more of these scenario reviews, and that generates a set of experiences. And these experiences are end-to-end feature sets that, when all pulled together, create a scenario. And those are broken down into stories that are assigned to teams. That's roughly how we work. And so if you look at this, a scenario gets a CEV review, and don't ask me what CEV means. I don't know what it means, but it's what it is you take a scenario and you it's like TDD at the macro level. Essentially, the test, instead of test-driven development, the test is your storyboard, and what you do is this is the experience we want. After a couple of sprints, we have a CEV review, and we give ourselves a star rating that says how are we doing against our test, how much of our tests are passing, if you will. How, on a scale of 1 to 5, how well are we implementing this scenario? And we always expect at the very beginning it's going to be poor. And then after a couple more sprints, we do it again. And we have actually a third party doing this evaluation for us. A third party within Microsoft, but outside the product team. And then we do it again, and the idea is we keep doing it until we believe we have completed the scenario successfully. And then when we can call it done. Maybe we don't get to 5 stars. Maybe the experience was we only expect to get to 2 stars for this scenario, and that's what's called done. And that's all defined ahead of time kind of thing. But that's kind of like TDD at the macro level, if you will. So a lot of people ask about methodology. It's all over the board. Lots of teams work in lots of different ways, and we don't care. The only things we do care about is the exit criteria are met before you check in to the branch, and you have your stories linked up so we can see visibility above the stories to the scenarios. Those are the two things that we care about. And I just wanted to quickly talk about, while I was here, our whole building moved to another building where everybody's in a team room. So there are no more offices. Not even managers have offices. Even at the very highest level, no one has an office. All the managers are in a team room of their own. So we have gone into this wholeheartedly that team rooms are what we're going to do. It's not met with enthusiasm by everybody. I'll tell you that right now. Some people who do not want to give up their office. We had a couple people on my team, the last 2 days in their office, they had their doors shut and their blinds closed because they just wanted to enjoy their office for the last 2 days before they gave it up. I'm excited for the team room. I think it's going to be cool. I wonder in a year from now, if we're talking about it, if we'll have some good things to share there. Okay, that's what I reviewed. Those are the basics, and that's the end there. We have 4 minutes left. I'll just take a couple of minutes for questions. Are there any questions? Yes? Great question. So are these scenarios, are they in a separate TFS team project? So I'll give you 2 answers. Answer number 1 is, in our organization, no. We have one team project that 3,500 people work in. The entire Visual Studio project's in one team project. So all the stuff is in a single team project there. Not for us. Now, could you do it is probably another question that people might want to know. So the answer is this. The things that are connecting a scenario down to a story are just links. You can link work items across team projects if you want. You could set up a system where the scenarios are in one team project and you have the other team project there and create the links. And the visualization would still work. What would not work today is that nice mapping panel I showed you where you could list it. Like it's only going to show you teams that are within your team project. So then you would be forced to do the linking that ugly way that I showed you. But once you got the link in there, the visualization would work. This is a common question. And I'm listening to it, I'm watching this. A lot of customers are asking for this. And maybe what we will be doing is in the future adding the ability to select a team from another team project in that mapping panel to provide that experience. But I'm watching this one closely. So, any other questions? Okay, very good. Let me see, I got to do one more thing here. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, here. Yeah, all right. This is the QR code for this session. Please go ahead and give the feedback. We'd like to hear that. And I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.